Good afternoon, everybody. Can
Loud and
you,
clear. Great.
yes, you can hear me all right, Jack?
Yes. Would you like
Fantastic.
to use the PowerPoint slide I prepared for you? This one?
Yes, fantastic. So
Okay. You have the floor now.
thank you, everybody, for it's a pleasure being here today. As I was introduced, I'm Mamun Haque. I'm the managing director of Greenleaf Cosmetics Australia, and I would like to share my ideas with manufacturing clean beauty in Australia and the opportunities, with it. So let's talk a little bit about what's the main goal of Greenleaf as a manufacturing company. We are one of the first, if not the first, fully sustainable manufacturing plant in Australia, especially in Victoria. So before that, there's a lot of movement around organic and natural products, but sustainability being a new concept, and we brought it to the Australian market back in 2018. And it's our mission to produce green and clean manufacturing products for the entire Australian and global market. So let's have a quick look at the cosmetics manufacturing industry in Australia. So it's a small country in terms of population. We got 25 million people in Australia, but considering the population size, I think in the manufacturing industry is quite large. It has around $2 billion in revenue per year. It's not extremely competitive. There are less than 1,000 companies in the manufacturing game, in the whole continent, and it's a profitable business. As you can look from the slide, there is nearly $168 million per year profit. There's nearly over 6,000 people employed in the industry, and it's a stable growth being noticed in the industry as well. So if we look at the key external drivers, it's actually the pricing in oil that impacts the energy pricing in Australia, has a significant impact. Then there is the disposable income, there is household expenditure, and the other factors are also very much playing an important role in the growth of the industry as well. Let's look at the segmentation of the market. So Australian cosmetics market is actually segmented in hair care, personal care, which is toiletries, everyday essential products, perfume and fragrance, makeup and skin care, which is the largest category, and then there is a significant growth being noticed in skincare and beauty, in makeup in the recent years. But if you look at the major players, you'll see there is significant opportunities. Not in a lot of countries, you'll see there is, not a lot of market share is taken by multinationals or large organizations. In Australia, we see Unilever has 14% market share, then it's a multinational company. And after that, 6% is controlled by Ego Pharmaceuticals. That's a Sydney-based pharmaceutical company. They're in every retailer and pharmacies in this country. And then the rest, which is a significant amount, is 80% of the market is shared by small to medium-sized manufacturers like us. So that creates a big opportunity for small to medium-sized manufacturers in Australia. So if we look at the supply chain, as you can see that in Australia, there is a bit of, machineries manufacturing, which is, in my view, is not quite strong. And in Australia also, the organic chemical manufacturing is not matured. Same goes with even natural raw materials and packaging raw materials. Australia is far behind. So that's where there is a significant growth opportunity. But in terms of distribution, wholesale and retail is quite established in Australia. It's a very structured and highly efficient distribution network in Australia that covers the whole continent. If we let's talk about what is sustainable manufacturing. There is a lot of misconception out there about sustainable manufacturing. Normally, people think it's all about, environmentally friendly, cosmetics. It's actually, it impacts, besides environment, it actually has, like, I will jump into this page. So these are the areas that sustainable manufacturing involved, which is the water, the landfill, and localization of manufacturing. Because when you think about, if you talk about sustainable manufacturing, you produce product in Australia, then you ship it to South America, then it doesn't stay sustainable anymore because of your transport and shipping. That adds a lot more carbon footprint than what you're saving in environment from manufacturing. So, localized manufacturing is very important in the whole sustainability structure. Then it's community focused, which means, like, it has to have an environment where it creates jobs and employment opportunities for people in the community, regardless of race or religion or background. So that is what, as a combination, makes a sustainable manufacturing practice. So if we go into the next slide, which is changing the manufacturing base. So back in the days, if we go back to 70s and even before that 60s, in Australian manufacturing was heavily controlled by large organizations, large multinationals, and there are big plants, all over Australia, in automobile industry, in food industry, in other heavy technology industry. But in beauty industry, it's been pretty much controlled by small to medium size businesses, by manufacturers. So that's in the last 10, 12 years, that whole scenario has changed significantly. That creates a lot of opportunity for new players as well. Then we have noticed the significant rise of green cosmetics. Now, what is green cosmetics is a very good question. That it's actually, is it organic? Is it natural? Is it vegan? It's actually a combination of all of them. So basically, it's harsh chemical free, it's GMO free, it's any material that is environmentally not responsible, free from this kind of formulation, is what makes green cosmetics. And if you follow the trend in Australia, I would say since 2010, there is a lot of interest through the local market, and we can see the impact in consumer behavior as well. We can see it through their online search. There is a lot of interest in green, sustainable, environmentally responsible cosmetics, and I think Australia is leading in the world in that area. Then if we look at some market data, that you would see it's a pleasantly surprising that Australia is on a constant growth in terms of revenue. Even through the pandemic, our sales did not drop, our revenue did not drop. We can all be proud of that achievement, that it is always on the rise, and that creates opportunities as well. Then if we look into the industry outlook, that we are looking at, in the next 5 years, at least 3% growth is visible in the industry. That is going to convert the industry into a $2.2 billion industry. And I believe that is the number coming from the manufacturing arena. If we include the retail, it's actually a much bigger number than that. If we look into the industry life cycle, I think in Australia, the cosmetics industry is quite secured and quite stable. So it has a life cycle of 5 or less, 5 years or less. Whereas I have seen in some other markets, it could be 6 months. So that doesn't give you the longevity. That doesn't give you the long-term benefit of developing a new trend, or innovating something different. But in Australia, it's quite stable. So if you have 5 years shelf life or life cycle of a trend or a concept, that gives you a lot of opportunity to capitalize on it. So if we talk about the major markets, so one of the very important thing to note is that 60% of Australian cosmetics revenue comes from the export market. And we'll talk about this at a later stage, but Australia has free trade agreement with 26 countries around the world. And that actually opens up tax-free entry into a lot of markets from US and China, and South Asian countries, and recently something been issued with South American countries as well. So 60% market share goes to export. Then there is pharmacies and retail stores, the supermarket, department store, they all share parts of the market. But that is, to me, quite interesting that because of globalization, the export opportunity is huge in Australia. If we look into the business concentration map, I'm in Victoria, in Melbourne. You can see we're probably in the most ideal place for manufacturing because we're not overly saturated or crowded. If you look at New South Wales, it's very busy, very crowded. If you go into Queensland, it's somewhere in between New South Wales and Victoria. Northern Territory is pretty empty, and Western Australia and South Australia hasn't developed enough. So that's the business concentration in Australia. And you can see we have $1.1 billion in export in last year. At the same time, we had $2.4 billion in import. And because of the consumer behavior shift, there is a massive opportunity in growing local manufacturing. So we can minimize our reliance on import. And this movement has been heavily supported by Australian government as well as the customers and distributors. Now, this is something I probably touched a little bit on it, the evolution of local manufacturing. In the last 10 years, we have seen a lot of new factories coming. If you are in the beauty industry, it's actually very spread out. There's a lot of components from packaging, then raw materials and different parts of the product. And even in raw materials, there is hundreds of different materials that you may use in your formulations. So in Australia, there is significant growth in all different areas. So now we have packaging manufactured locally. We have a lot of Australian-made oils and extracts and vitamins and even butters that that we didn't have here 5-10 years ago. It's happening right now. And a lot of full service manufacturing plants, contract manufacturers are also operating in Australia today. So if you look back, I would say 10 years ago, 90% Australian market would be covered from imported cosmetics, and that kind of scenario, that kind of reliance on overseas suppliers is getting less and less every year. So that creates opportunities for local manufacturing mostly. So there are a lot of benefits of local manufacturing as well. I would not read line by line, but as you can see, it creates jobs. It actually, currently, every businessman in manufacturing or in distribution or branding is suffering from the troubles we have in logistics, high shipping costs, delays, and there's a lot of other complications. So I think the local manufacturing takes away a lot of this trouble. So the logistics expense is very high and delays are unbearable. But when you make products locally, it reduces all and helps you to deal with all those challenges. And at the same time, when you do local manufacturing, because of COVID, the traveling been restricted. So for the last more than 2 years, I could not step foot in China, where I have a lot of customers, but my local customers been able to visit me, and they are very excited about working with the local factory because the face-to-face meetings helps a lot. And then at the same time, quality control and control with human rights and workers' rights control, all of that is much easier to manage when it's localized. So there is, besides this, there is a lot other financially viable benefits of local manufacturing. And this is why I would say the trend is growing in Australia to bring manufacturing back. And the areas where we see the opportunities of local manufacturing are packaging, raw materials, and accessories. Although there are factories already operating in Australia, but I think if there is 3 or 4 factories in the whole continent making packaging, there might be room for another 100 factories in Australia. I have one really good, reliable tube manufacturer that I had to wait for 6 months for one delivery, but I still buy from them because of the better quality and keeping the business local. But if I have opportunities to build another tube manufacturing plant in Australia, they will be able to take a big amount of the customer demand as well. The same goes with raw materials. I heavily import materials from China, from India, from South America, also from North America. Before pandemic, it was all functioning well, but right now, because of the logistics cost and delays, I prefer getting raw materials locally. So even I have to pay more price, I'm happy to buy it from a local manufacturer if they can maintain the quality. Same goes with boxes, cartons, other packaging materials, accessories, brushes, everything. We prefer to get locally if possible. Next page, it's taking a bit of time to load. So Australia government has implemented a modern manufacturing strategy, and there is a significant amount of government grant. On the top of my head, last year it was $565 million that Australian government was funding to companies who want to do innovative, automated and high capacity manufacturing. And that is the strategy Australian government has to encourage manufacturing, to create more jobs, and at the same time to stabilize the supply chain. So Australian supply chain has been impacted heavily because of COVID. If you go to some stores today, if you go to some pharmacies and supermarkets, you'll see empty shelves. That is unbelievable in Australia even 3 years ago. Now it's very normal because of the supply chain disruption due to the pandemic. And besides government support, there are a lot of good reasons for international companies to come to Australia. We have R&D incentive from the government. We have design incentive and support from Australia. Every university got a design department and laboratory. It's one continent where the logistics is very structured. Like you can ship goods from one side of Australia to the other end without any trouble. We have, a very stable distribution network. There are a lot of different areas from online distribution to retail to wholesale, supermarkets, department stores, pharmacies, boutique shops, local markets. Australia is a place where things happen around the clock. Even Sunday markets, like regional markets, and even weekends, people love to shop. They love to go out and see things and buy things, and that's what adds to Australian economy significantly. And then if we look at the growth, it's stable of Australian cosmetics industry, beauty industry, manufacturing and wholesale, and the revenue growth is stable. So you go to a lot of other countries where, it's highly competitive. You go into manufacturing in China, you'll disappear if you don't, have the right kind of structure or right kind of team or support. In Australia, you come here to do manufacturing, you will have a lot more support, both from the government and also from local authorities and the distributors. And let's talk about a little bit of what the opportunities with Greenleaf Australia. We are a sustainable manufacturing plant. we're actively looking for joint venture projects with other manufacturers in other countries where we can financially, we can support and grow each other's businesses. We are also open to do innovative brand development. We do a lot of branding. We have in-house branding and design departments, so we can work together in that. There is opportunities of partnering up with Greenleaf as in equity partnership. And we also working on a franchisee model where we can give our formulations, our manufacturing methods, our technologies to set up sustainable manufacturing plant in other markets as well. So today, because of the pandemic and because of all the tension and stress, and let's not forget the war happening in Europe, it has brought the like-minded people even closer than ever before. So the idea of sustainable manufacturing is supporting each other, helping each other, and growing together in an organic way. And so that's a couple of snapshots of my current factory, which I take a lot of pride in. And it's doing really well, and I'm happy to share our success with our other interested international partners as well. That's the front view of my factory, which is located in the industrial area of Laverton. It's near Melbourne Airport, and it's actually very close to the CBD as well. I'm happy to answer your questions, and if you want a copy of this presentation that has a lot of data that we collected together with RMIT University, I'm happy to share this PDF as well with you. Just need to email me and introduce yourself, and I'm happy to explore the opportunities with joint venture or working together with manufacturers, with brand owners, with distributors, or with suppliers. So that is our ultimate goal, and thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to take it to the QA and answer some of your questions. Goes back to Jack.
Okay, guys, okay, it's me again, Jack. Thanks for connecting with our speaker. Please prepare your questions to the speaker. Let's go to the Q&A mode. Okay. Mr. Mamun, Haque, please go to the Q&A mode.
Yeah.
And you can find out there are several questions, and I think they're still coming up. But you can pick the one you would like to first.
Okay. Are we going to? Let me have a look.
Do you see there's a button?
I see. Yes, I see. Option to publish.
Yeah, but I can choose. Yeah, take your time.
Yeah.
I believe we can answer 2 to 3 questions.
Yes. No, that's okay. I'll pick something right now. That's okay. So this is quite an interesting question, that how is the consumer behavior in Australia impacting manufacturing industry? I would answer to that one first, because we have seen significant growth in demand for Australian-made products. Actually, because of the pandemic, there is a lot of sentiment about supporting local, and because people are trapped within the country, they're not traveling internationally, they can't really go to other markets and buy things. But besides that, it has brought in the sense of urgency to the customers as well. So there is a big push and growth in demand for made in Australia products. So we have a lot of support from the customers, all the way to the end users, to the distributors and the government departments. We have never seen an environment like this before, where customers are constantly looking for where the product is made. Before, if it's made in China or Korea or Taiwan or US, it did not matter. But now they pick something up and they say, yeah, it's made in overseas. They'll put it down and look for the symbol, the kangaroo symbol on made in Australia in a triangle. Even products like candles, they're looking for that, which was not very common in Australia. So yes, the consumer behavior, I would say, has 40% positive impact in the growth of local manufacturing in Australia. Because if the customer is not going to ask for it, then the retailer is not going to put it on the shelves. So yes, it does have a very positive impact.
Okay.
I'll take another question.
Yeah, there's a new one at the bottom. If you want, you can also take a look at that one.
Yep, let me have a look. So do
Oh,
Australians prefer yeah, I think I just answered to that one. Do Australians prefer locally manufactured, locally sourced over foreign? Yes, they do. Yes, I can say this strongly that they do. Probably not in all areas, like when it comes to mass market products, probably not so much. But when it goes to masstige to high-end product, they definitely value made in Australia products a lot more over imported products. Yeah. I think, did I see something from Anna Liu? I don't know, is that a question?
And I have to say, due to the time limitation, I believe the next question will be our last. But I have copy paste your contact information in the chat box to delegates already.
So I got one last question, which is, does Greenleaf Cosmetics have a halal certification? Why or why not? I do not have halal certification at the moment, but we're in the process of getting it. We wanted to apply for this last year, but because of pandemic, it's been very difficult because they need to come and do an audit or the site visit. So it was restricted. So we are open up from this year. So I'm going to apply for halal certificate and I will get it. I'm very confident about that.
Okay, so since it's the end of your presentation session, please make a conclusion or please tell me which question you prefer the most, and I will give a voucher to it.
You mean the pending questions?
Yeah, all the questions in the Q&A mode, you can tell me either one, either you answered or not. I will give a voucher to these people who asked the question as a gift.
I think we go with the last question that we have, our halal certificate.
Ah, great, good choice.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's an interesting question. Yes.
sure. I will just take note on that. And
Yeah.
lastly, I would like to say thank you for joining the event today. And I'm
Thank you
looking
very
forward
much.
to see you in our future events too.
You will. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye bye, Mr. Haque.